What do you get when you combine a world-class EMS physician and medical director
I speak pretty good English for a guy from Detroit.
with an EMS veteran and all-around nice guy?
Well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Oh, that's so good. Oh, my God.
Well, you get the EMS show. Taking it to the people, here's your host, Dr. Ritu and Mike Vercast.
Well, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the EMS show. Mike Vercast, Dr. Ritu. It's been a long time, my brother.
It has been a little while, yeah.
It's been a little bit because we were the guests on EMS 2020.
Yes.
And then I took
Great
that
guys.
podcast that they released, and then I released it for like us because I was like, I kept looking around for my buddy, and I couldn't find him
I was
anywhere.
gone.
He was
Couldn't
gone.
find me. You weren't in the right place.
Those were my binoculars, if you didn't know.
That's right. For the people listening to the podcast.
Oh, that's
You were
true.
making
See,
binocular eyes.
I always forget about that. Yeah, I was doing binocular eyes. That's pretty good. Yeah. But you know, one of the things we were talking about was, I got to adjust my volume a little bit because I can't hear you. Is like mental health, self-care, taking care of ourselves, taking care of the people we work with. And so like with that, you left.
I did.
You took some time off. You took a sabbatical.
I called it a sabbatical. Yeah, I mean, it was longer than a week off, so I figured I might as well call it a sabbatical. Sometimes when people take a sabbatical, it's like to go do something else and take a class or something. But I took the entire month of November off, and I took the month off because I was getting a little crispy around the edges, and probably 6 or 8 months ago decided that I need a little bit of a break.
Yeah. So good. And I was so happy that you made the decision to do that. Cause I think like put myself in your shoes for a second, which I can't really do because you probably have size 7.5, but if
9.
Oh, 9.
Or 8. 8's actually, but
Okay.
sometimes 9's, yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's fair enough. But I would always think, is there time? I have so much to do. Can I afford to take time off because I know everything will pile up when I'm gone, and that would just create like more stress. Did you feel some of that or no?
We did in prep work for this. We did a lot of prepping around like EMS medical direction for the 2 counties that I work in.
Yeah.
And so, we went from a place a few years ago where I was the only medical director for both these counties, right after Terry retired, to bringing in more kind of help, starting with just before the pandemic, but during the pandemic. But so now, in Clackamas County, we have 2 associate medical directors with, Dr. Turner and Dr. Kofed. And then we have in Washington County, Dr. Jesse Borer Clancy, who our friend Dave Cohn trained. So I brought in some help, and I felt like these physicians were, good and able to handle things should they be gone, should I be gone. And I think that was a big part of it. The other piece is that like coming to the realization that the world goes on without you. And that I think for a lot of us is really hard because we have a vision of what we want to do and a vision of what our system or program or anything should look like. And we're always a little bit worried that if we're not there to guide the vision, that the vision will break down. And so kind of letting go of that belief, because I can tell you right now that if I disappear, this system will be just fine. I mean, not as good, I don't know, but it'll still continue.
I mean, I love that, right? But I also hate it I mean, I felt that just even since I've been gone, right? Like, how was the ops group meeting yesterday? Right? Was there some talk about the kits? I mean, I don't know, the shit that we busted our ass on for I don't know how many
We talked about
years
the
or
kits,
whatever.
and we're making another subcommittee to re-review the kits because some people want to make some bigger changes.
Which is fine. Which is fine. But it's just like, like if I mean, you just feel the pressure of wanting to guide and lead and make sure everything's all right. But no one missed a beat when I left. I mean, it's so
it's different, and it's not, but yeah, this stuff goes on. So that's a big part of it, is just kind of like being willing to let go.
And so did you struggle with that at all? Or I mean, it's probably easy to look back on it, but did that, even though you had good people and of course everything was going to be taken care of, no one was going to be left in a lurch. But did you struggle with that? And what is it like now? Like, does it give you more confidence going forward that you can go to, Las Vegas for an F1 race next year, or whatever?
Well, I mean, I've always had a lot of travel. I've always been out and about and around.
That's true.
But I've always been accessible, and people call me and all this stuff. And, there were a couple of incidents that popped up while I was gone. One where I got called and like, yeah, I'm actually in Belize right now. So you need to call this other person. And the person handled it differently than I would have. And for a second I was like, ooh. And then I'm like, nah, it's fine. That's just how he chose to handle it. Yeah. And you just got to get over yourself, man. You just got to get over yourself. I mean,
and that's
and Jeff Goodlow, who is the Tulsa, Oklahoma medical director, has a great talk. They had huge tornadoes in Tulsa probably 7-8 years ago. And when it all went down, Goodlow was on a boat with in Anchorage, Alaska, fishing. And he wasn't even, and he was out of cell range. So he had no idea anything was happening until he got back. And then his phone blew up. Right. And one of the points it's a great lecture that he'd given. And one of the points he talks about is if you build a system where you're integral, you need to get over yourself. Because you're not integral. And B, there's no guarantee you're going to be there. So if you as a medical director, I think a challenge that we have as a medical director is that medical directors, we both really matter a lot, but also can be easily want to matter more. So you want to try to build things that you're like, the medical director needs to be involved in this. And I say that a lot. And are there times when I'm not involved in something and then shit happens and it's not that great? Yeah, it does happen that way. But at the end of the day, the thing finally, it works. It'll work. It's okay. So, Jeff taught me that probably 8-9 years ago, that you just can't be there all the time. And so I was just like, there's a lot of shit going on. I'm very crispy, getting a little bit. And this was, 6 or 7 months ago. Right. I was like, I need to take a whole month off. And so I talked to a bunch of people, and everybody I work with, the person who does my schedule at the emergency department was like, yeah, we can work around that. We have is a vacation month where I would normally work half the shifts anyway. So yeah, we can just go to 0 on that month. And he says, but if I need your help another month, you got to help me out. I'm like, done. That's not a problem. And then I talked to the counties. I'm still the medical director when I'm gone. They still need the authority that comes from my license. So they're like, yeah, no, you can, you put in my contracts are sort of based on a presumed time, but not like a time. Yeah. I don't have to fill out a time clock or anything, but they're like, yeah, you've definitely given everything in the contract. So even if you go, we'll it's not a problem. So everybody was supportive. Everybody said you work hard and you need, you work hard, but you need to take this time for yourself. And so that's what I did.
So that's so awesome. All right. So we got a little bit behind the story. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. I love that. What did you do? What did you go? I know how
Well, first I went to Ann Arbor.
Yes, you did.
To see
Go
Michigan
Blue.
go blue, 13-0.
Yeah.
So first I went to Ann Arbor, and I met up with my friend Scott, and Janet came with me, and Scott's wife came up, and we went to the Michigan State game, which seems like a really long time ago now.
Yeah.
And then you remember our friend Seth Fisher from MGO Blog, who we had as a guest. Yeah.
Guest right here on this very show.
On this very show, where we talk about data and how sports and data kind of does performance improvement.
Yep.
Great episode. If y'all, I think I would recommend y'all go back and listen to that one.
You don't have to go very far back because we don't record much anymore. Apparently,
that's right.
Only like 3 or 4 back, I think.
Yeah. So, I went and had drinks with Seth. I think I sent you a picture of us together.
Indeed.
Talked to him for a little while, and then went to the Michigan game. Then the next day went to Detroit, downtown Detroit, and stayed at the casino there and went to the Lions game.
That was a close game. They still lost.
They lost by 3, but it was a close one. They've since gone 4-1 since that.
Wild.
And then the next day got on a plane and spent 28 days in Belize.
You stayed partly in the jungle, partly at the beach.
That's right. So we got there, and we landed, and we had a week in a jungle eco resort called Chaw Creek, which we now are calling COVID
Jungle
Creek.
Eco Resort. Eco Resort. What does that mean? Fill me in, brother.
So an eco resort means that they charge you a lot more money to
sure.
Do things that are more like nature oriented, I guess. But mostly they just can charge you a lot more money by calling themselves an eco resort.
Do they deliver the drinks to your hut or whatever? Did you have to stay in a grass hut? What was?
We did not. We stayed in stayed in a very nice, like 2/3 glass villa over with our own hot tub and then a balcony overlooking the jungle.
Yes, and
it wasn't too bad.
I remember getting a text. We stayed in contact while you were gone, which I appreciated and loved that. Just making sure just checking in with everybody, making sure it was good. My buddies in a foreign land, and I was just, I'm just concerned about people. I'm a people person. But I remember getting a video with this terrifying noise. And I said, what in the hell? It sounded like an episode of The Walking Dead, which, by the way, we're starting that all over again. So we're on episode or season 3. And I said, what in the hell is that? I think I really even said, that is terrifying. What the hell is it? Monkeys.
Yeah. It's the howler monkeys. So they have, on this resort or in this area, there are howler monkeys that live in the region. And
I'm going to try to find that text right now, by the way. And I'm going to play that shit.
Yeah. And the howler monkeys kind of parked themselves right outside our room one morning. And they're these little tiny cute monkeys. And we could look up in the tree and see like 8 of them. But the males are very territorial, and the way they mark their territory, let other males know, is they howl. And this howl, I think they are the loudest mammals or the loudest land animals in the world. And when they howl, it sounds like something from like Friday the 13th. And actually they told us that they took that sound and they used it for some of the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park.
Yes. All right, I found it.
Did you find it? Because I was going to go.
Yep. Here's the sound. Here's the video of the howler monkeys. So to that, I replied literally verbatim, reading the text. God damn, that's terrifying. And you said, it's fucking scary. They did that for 10 minutes straight. Oh my God.
Yeah. So we
Anyway.
got to the eco resort and they're like, hey, welcome to Chaw Creek. It's beautiful here. There's a hurricane coming tomorrow. So there's like no tours for the next 2 days.
Oh. Wah,
So,
wah.
because when we like landed in Belize City and they closed the main airport like 3 hours later because
Yeah.
when like a hurricane popped up 2 days before we were supposed to get there and moved all the way across Belize, and we were like basically one whole day kind of stuck in our room and waiting for the hurricane. But it was nice because they kept, they were like, okay, well, you all the guests who are here, we're gonna meet in the bar at noon. So we all met in the bar at noon, and then we're all started ordering drinks. It's like,
Perfect. And that was pretty much the whole thing. Again, I would text him every once in a while just to make sure he was okay. For those of you that are listening, you won't see this picture of Ritu by the pool, this cool hat on, and I'm sure there's a frosty beverage somewhere in there. So you were doing all right.
Did okay. We spent a week in the jungle, and then for 3 weeks, we rented a condo overlooking the Caribbean Sea on Ambergris Key, and yeah, it was good. And I did not check my email. I checked my email when we were still in Michigan once or twice, which was good because there was something I was doing for somebody that I had to finish to help them get promoted. But I got that done, and then I didn't check email till I got back here, and I'm only 530 emails behind.
It's not bad,
but I mean, I wondered if I would be able to detach and do all that, and I did. And the place continued to run without me. Belize was freaking gorgeous. Yeah, Belize. I came back to a little bit of a mess. We all are having the same problems though with boarding, and volumes are now super high, and there's been a lot of work going on, but the folks managed it as best as they could. And a lot of them are telling me it's great that you're back and we needed your guidance and input, but I'm like, y'all had it without me. It's all fine. But yeah, Belize, I just got to tell you, the Belize is fabulous. It's this tiny little country. The islands are amazing. The water is crystal clear. It's super warm. And we didn't plan much, but we did a fair amount of stuff, but there were a lot of frosty beverages involved.
Many good. Days. Was this like was it like an all-inclusive like resort thing, or?
No, we stayed in we got a condo. So
that's right. That's what you said. Yeah.
So because I didn't want to like have restaurant food like for every meal, although we still did a lot, but we would go grocery shopping, drive our little golf cart into town, into San Pedro, and go to the Super Buy and go get some groceries and make breakfast but also going out for breakfast is fun too. But I mean, if you've never been to Belize, to Ambergris Key or Key Cocker, you rent golf carts. So you drive all around on golf carts. You don't drive. I mean, there are cars there like to take, there are some taxis and stuff, but it's just driving around in your little golf cart that you rent for the month.
Well, that sounds really good.
It was really good. And the other thing is like, I'm not a sit still kind of person.
I
am not. And so for me, it was really an exercise. And like, I'm just going to sit by the pool, have a few drinks. Like I never understood people going to a beach and just sitting there for 4 hours, but I did it and it was really pretty good.
Yeah. I would
totally
do that.
See, to me, I was like, well, what are you doing? You got to be doing something. But no, I got very good at sitting.
Yeah, we're going to Maui for our 30th anniversary this year, and I'm planning on as little as possible.
Yeah, and I did that, but I mean, we still did stuff.
Yeah.
We went snorkeling. We went to a different island and did some sightseeing and drinking at a different bar. There's a place on Ambergris Key called Secret Beach that we went to a couple times.
Was it really a secret though?
No,
No.
not really. It was
So just
it wasn't that busy when we went. There was right about 5 minutes from our condo place was a place called the Truck Stop, which I got some gear from. And the Truck Stop, I wonder where I put that Truck Stop. I bought a sticker too for my, but the trucks, and that's like a food cart pod almost that had like
oh nice.
there and they had a couple of bars. They had a bunch of beers to choose from, and the last time we went there, it was almost like going to Cheers. I walked in and number two.
Oh, jeez.
they kind of all knew who I was at that point.
That's funny.
Well, and at one point I was in downtown San Pedro and some cart rode by and it was one of the bartenders in the truck stop who yells, "Hey, Ritu, how are you?"
That's
so
great.
I would, obviously it's hard for people and taking a month off can, I think that some places having sabbatical programs, and I know people who work in a place with a sabbatical program and they don't take it. And I just, it was amazing to just detach for really 4.5 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, I left on October 28th and came back on November 28th, but didn't start working again until December 1st.
Well, good, man. I'm so happy for you. I'm glad you got to go out there and had relatively chill time. I mean, that's
yeah. And I would
are you feeling like the I'm back into it, or are you still sort of living a little of the beach life like in your mind?
So I'm not like I didn't come back and I'm not like, oh my God, I'm so refreshed. Everything's perfect and I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of like, I got to go back. On the other hand, I'm happy to be back because I love what I do.
Yeah, of course.
But I will say I'm definitely like I definitely don't feel as crispy as I did before.
Yeah.
I think some realities about kind of the current situation and kind of what's going on in the hospitals are just realities that I've sort of come to grips with. But even at work the other day, somebody was getting very frustrated. And then one of my partners goes, "You've got a little bit of an island vibe going today. You just seem like, yeah, I'm on whatever. Yeah, man, whatever." And a little bit like that. But the Belizeans are super nice. Belize sort of is dependent on tourism, so they were crushed during COVID. So they're very happy to have people back there. The official language is English. So even though most of them speak some version of Mayan or Creole or Spanish, but mostly actually a lot of Creole, they all speak English because that's what's taught in the schools. The Belizean dollar is 50 cents. That's always 50 cents, and everybody takes dollar bills. So you'll go to a place and they'll be like, "That's $20." And you'll hand them a $20 US bill and they'll give you 20 Belizean dollars back. It's very weird because I'm like, I gave you 20 and you gave me 20, but because you gave them 40 in Belizean dollars. But yeah, it's easy, very easy. And if you're at all kind of, one of my friends, an anesthesiologist from Seattle, who's very big into diving, was like, "Oh my God, you're going to Belize. That's the best diving in the world."
Wow.
And I'm not a diver, not really much of a in the water person at all, but we went snorkeling and it was absolutely beautiful. Had some sharks swimming with us, sea turtles, all this kind of stuff. It's pretty amazing. You look thrilled.
Sounds wonderful. I mean, I had the sour look on my face when you said sharks. What I don't know what I'd feel about that.
It's a nurse shark. Nurse sharks are pretty tame, but it's definitely a shark. You look down, I'm like, there's a shark in front of me. And then we went to a spot where they throw chum in the water and all this nurse sharks come and then you jump in. I chose to sit that part out.
Pass.
I passed on that part. But again, I learned a little bit about like, okay, I don't have to run all the time. I can sort of take a break kind of physically, mentally, emotionally. and that was super helpful. I also started doing yoga with my wife every morning. So
you kept that little gem from me. Really?
Yeah.
How's that going?
Good. I didn't do it today because I had to get up and go to multi-agency training, but we'll do it tonight before we go to bed. But she'd been doing yoga for almost 2 years now. She started and almost 2 years. And I said, well, I'll just start doing it with you. So every morning we got up and because I didn't have anything on the schedule,
pretty clear.
It's like, yeah, let's do it. So we would get up. And the other thing, we talked about this before, but we didn't talk on, but my sleep schedule. So as an emergency physician, my sleep schedule is all over the map, but I went to bed at a same time every night. And what happened is my body was like, go to bed at like 9:30. So we were getting into bed at like 9:30 and getting up at 6. Now, part of it is that the sun was popping up at 6 a.m. And on all these beach places, they don't believe in blackout curtains. So we were
people want to see the sun.
Yeah. And so we were getting up at 6:30. We were sleeping 8 hours, falling asleep at around 10:30, waking up at 6:30. So we would get up. My condo was overlooking the water. So we would make coffee. I sat on the deck for half an hour and just stared at the water. 21 consecutive mornings. It never got old. And then we would do yoga every morning. Yoga with Adrian.
Dude, that's so cool.
And and then most days we also meditated. So another kind of mental health thing. We did the yoga, I think, of the 30 something days that we were gone, maybe 28 of them. And probably half the days we did a 15-minute meditation at some point during the day. Just trying to keep yourself present. And the worst thing you can do when you're on something like this kind of mental health break is not be present. And so really wanted to focus on being present. So doing those two things really helps sort of keep me in the moment rather than starting to fixate on the work coming back. And I would say most times when I take like a week off somewhere, I actually am pretty good at not checking email when I go out of town. But usually I start fixating on stuff 2 or 3 days before.
Yeah, you start getting ramped up. You're mentally preparing to get back into it.
So this didn't happen as much. Now I would say probably the 2 days before, like the Saturday before we came back or Sunday, started thinking about it a little bit more, but really tried to focus on staying present. So I think those are two skills that I hope will carry over to the sort of regular.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm hoping you can carry that through and sort of keep a lot of those good little healthy habits up. And the yoga, man, that ain't shit, no joke. Yeah, that's good.
Well, and when you're a short, fat man, I mean, you're not very flexible at all. And I was never particularly flexible growing up, even though I was an athlete and playing soccer and all that stuff. And you end up with short, fat kind of legs. And so you end up not. Yeah. So I've gotten, little things like improved sitting on the floor times and just a little more flexible. It's good.
I
didn't lose any weight. Was pretty physically active, but didn't lose any weight because when I wasn't active, I was drinking these kind of sugary beverages. There were a lot of daiquiris and rum punches going on.
Yeah.
And I'd never lived in a place where you go to a pool and then you have waiters. So we would go sit down and then the waiter would pop by. Robert would come over. It was like, hello, Mr. Ritu, what do you want today?
My favorite was when we went on the cruise a couple years ago, 2018. And I'm sure I've told the story, but they would come by with these, the volume of people on a cruise ship, right? It's like so many people. So they would have like pre-made drinks and they would just be walking around. You'd be like, oh, I'll take one of those. And from the minute we got on that ship until I got off, my jam was these things that they call the Winnie the Poohs. And it was it was mango daiquiri on the bottom, strawberry on top. So was yellow and red, like he wears his red shirt.
Yeah.
Best shit ever. And they were just always walking around with them. I mean, so I just had some. I didn't give a shit, whatever. But yeah, so I mean, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. So that was fine. But again, and people are like, this is supposed to be about EMS, and all 6 people are bored. But
if they would have been tuned in right when we started, they would have heard that we are talking about mental health and self-care and
and I think
unplugging.
Yeah.
We've got EMS stuff coming. Just hang in there a minute. That's okay.
We do. But I think it's an important message, and for me, it's been helpful. We'll see how it goes. I also learned that I will probably be okay in retirement. My wife has always been concerned, like when you finally retire, which I'm not quite sure when that's going to be. Still got a little bit of time left.
Maybe sooner than later after this trip. Huh?
You will struggle to. I could just drop everything and buy a place in Belize right now, and I could actually do that. But there were some challenges, like the cable cut, like when we were in the jungle, there was no TV. And then like the cable coverage on the island would kind of go in and out, but I was still able to watch every Michigan football game.
Perfect. Yeah. Cause there was 3 of them while you were gone? 2 of them? 3?
4.
Holy shit.
No, 3. 4 while I was gone, but I went to one of them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, it's funny that you talk about some of this stuff, and I'll tell you a little bit. We haven't talked about this at all, so we didn't game plan this one at all. But it goes right along with this, and as most people know, I'm not in the biz really anymore, right?
Right.
And so I have been on the struggle bus a little bit, trying to figure out, do I need to go do something? Like, do I need to go get involved? I need to go where, like, I'm feeling this like pull to go be involved. And I've really been talking to Michelle about this, and there's an opportunity. It's down the road a little bit, and it would probably be fine. I mean, I don't think I want to go run calls anymore. I mean, I'm 28 years in this year, 50 years old. I don't know that's, but yet I'm feeling this weird draw to like want to go be involved. And I don't quite understand it. I'm not sure what to do with it. I'm just going to sit on it. You know what I mean? But I'm feeling like, I mean, that's not like, I mean, I guess I'm disconnected in the sense that, I don't work for an agency anymore. Right. Like, so before I would be doing training or QI or, I wasn't maybe not running calls, but I was still involved in sort of an integral part and sort of the clinical leadership and all that stuff. And even some operational stuff. And like, I'm doing that. And I just don't, it's kind of weird, but at the same time, it's awesome. You know what I mean? Like it's so I have no idea. I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Well, you fell into a gig, I think, that fits what you want to be. I mean, I think that's part of it. I think you like kind of what you're doing.
For sure. Yeah. Ed just put on there, is anyone else's audio video cutting out? It's a little bit. I think I'm having some issues on my end. So just hang in there. Thankfully, we haven't had a giant meltdown just yet. So, yeah. Anyway. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. Maybe it's nothing, and then I start worrying about that. And then there goes my street cred. He's not doing anything anymore. And what is he doing? What did he do? And then people want me to come talk at conference. So what am I going to talk? Who wants to hear from a guy that's not in the field anymore? And it's just like this whole thing that maybe it's nothing. I don't know. It's pretty wild though. Harriet says it's just me. Great.
Yeah, I don't
know. Everything looks great on my end. I have no idea. Hang in there, you guys. Hang in there. If it gets too terrible, try going over to YouTube. I thought we were going to be going out on Twitter. I don't think it ever did, but the YouTube is gone, so that's good.
Good. Yeah. So,
Well, I wanted
what else do you want to know about taking a freaking sabbatical, taking a month off?
I don't know, man. I think we got it. I think we nailed it. I think people, I know not everyone can take a month off. Some people can. I think if I don't have the link in front of me and I don't have enough fingers to do it, it's just go to YouTube and search Best Show. It'll be the first one that pops up. But I know it's working because it's on there. Actually, I might be able to. Hold on a sec.
Yeah, I think Ed, part of it is, frankly, it's coming. I don't think it'll help to go to YouTube, to be honest, because
It may not.
I'm getting the same. I'm getting the same volume fluctuations from you.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Well, that's weird.
I think it's your Wi-Fi stuff.
Yeah, it's really sucks. Well, gosh darn it. I was trying to find, oh, share. Here we go. Copy link. There. Yeah, I don't know what it is. So I'm sorry. Lame. Let's talk about some EMS stuff. I mean, it's not like we haven't connected. It's just not clinical stuff. But I was really speaking of, I mean, it's a nice little segue from what I was just talking about, is it's getting to be that time of year back home.
That's right.
What I wanted to do was talk a little bit about some of the upcoming protocol changes. And this isn't going to be the full protocol episode that we do single year, although I'm going to be observer and curious guy because normally I'm in these things and helping write them and doing all the stuff. And now I'm not. So I'm going to be learning all about them. But I want to talk about what's going on. What's going to be some of the changes? What can people expect this year? What's going on? What's new? What's cutting edge? What's going on?
Yeah, I don't know that there's anything particularly cutting edge in the protocol changes this year. I'd say the last couple of years have been a lot of maintenance-y stuff.
Yeah.
I also think that because the Heart Association does their guidelines changes annually, changes in general tend to be more incremental rather than like a big 5-year complete rewrite of our cardiac arrest guideline or protocol that we've had in the past. But there's certainly a few things that I can kind of give you the heads up on that are kind of interesting. Some of which you're gonna be like, and you were around for the start of this, right? You were around in the first half of the year when we started picking our topics.
Yeah.
And then you left kind of after like June.
Indeed.
Because I remember we went and had drinks. I was very sad.
We did.
So none of this will be a big surprise, but let's, a simple thing. We always had fentanyl as our main pain medication, but because we always kept morphine in the protocols, just in case, and then we added hydromorphone because
now was that like a mid-season protocol ad after I left, or was that
change? We actually did that in July because there were places that could get neither fentanyl nor morphine.
Wow. I wonder if anyone watching in the comments, I know there's not a ton of people, but did you guys have those kind of same problems? Throw it in the chat. I'd be curious to know what you guys experienced. But so you added hydromorphone. Has that been given? How's that working out?
I don't know that anybody actually ended up using it, but we're ordering it. But we've added, our protocols are multiple agencies through multiple counties. So there always has to be this sort of flexibility about like being available for everybody. And so we added it in, and we had thought at some point somebody would order, but I don't think anybody's carrying it right now. Yeah. But just one of those stupid things that you have to, we can have a debate about what the best pain medicine is, but it's probably not good practice to carry 3 different pain medicines really. But we have to have them all in the protocol because some ways you just don't know. You just don't know what you're going to be able to get this week.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty wild. Even Ed was saying they still can't get fentanyl. Are you guys still running into that? Inability to get it, or has that calmed down a little bit? Cause it's always been weird. I've never quite understood the logistics piece of, how one agency 2 miles down the road from another can get it fine and the other ones can't. And anyway, but that's a whole nother story. But is that still an issue?
It seems like at least right now, this week, people are having no trouble getting fentanyl. It all comes down to the supplier, right? And the supply and these games that are being played, like we had gotten to a point where we couldn't order fentanyl, but we could get it from a compounding pharmacy.
Sure.
But they weren't compounding fentanyl, they were ordering it from our supplier. And our supplier's like, well, we don't have any, but they were still selling it to the compounder. So some of this is a little bit of gamesmanship, and some of it, and then remember it used to be too, our good friend Ben Sorensen would order the fentanyl before everybody else would. So you had to get your fentanyl order before Ben. So some of it was like that. In our system, Ed, all of our agencies use outside suppliers. Nobody gets anything from the pharmacy. So every fire agency uses a different supplier, but it's your standards, your Boundtrees, your McKesson. AMR uses McKesson. Metro West uses Boundtree. Other folks were using Life Assist.
So it looks like your dose. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, but it was hilarious because the compounder was buying them from McKesson, so AMR couldn't get them from McKesson, but the compounder could. It was kind of terrible.
So, sort of answering Ed's question. So it looks like the dose for the pain management was 0.25 to 0.5 milligrams IV. Repeat every 15 to 20 minutes, up to a maximum of 2 milligrams. Musculoskeletal. Well, that was a pediatric stuff, but anyway, I'm guessing that's a pretty common dose.
0.25 is a little bit low, but as often happens in our system, some of our medical directors like to start low.
Yeah.
And, even though I've never, ever done 0.25.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember when I had my episode in January of 2021 and got Dilaudid. I'm trying to remember. I don't even know what I got, but it was good.
I got 0.5 when I had my episode 2 weeks later.
Yeah. I don't know. I liked it. I didn't feel.
What's funny is it helped my pain, but I didn't feel nothing else. It wasn't like.
No, that was the thing. I think that's what I like. I mean, I don't have a lot of experience with pain meds. I have had fentanyl before. I wish I would have just had a severe sprain. The doctor said I would be better off just to have broken the damn thing. But fentanyl, and I'm sure I've told the story, man, I'm telling you, it was 20 minutes on the money that it was great. And then it just turned off like somebody flipped a switch. They gave me another dose. Great for another 20 minutes. So that was good. And the Dilaudid I had when I had my diverticulitis. That's about, I've had Versed too. That was really good.
Yeah. So one of the questions is there a ratio of morphine versus fentanyl versus hydromorphone? There is a conversion. It's a pretty simple calculation. I believe that 1 milligram of Dilaudid is 8 milligrams of morphine. I can't remember how that converts to fentanyl off the top of my head.
Wow, I didn't realize that was so much.
Yeah, well, remember, we underdose morphine too. 4 or 5 milligrams of morphine is not enough. Go blue, Amber Hossack. I love it. So that's the conversion I always remember is 1 milligram of Dilaudid is 8 to 10 milligrams of morphine. So.
All right. So you added that. That was a mid-season change, though. Well,
that was a mid-season change. So, I think kind of some of the bigger changes. We had a very complicated shock protocol, and we had you didn't start it until the patient got really hypotensive, but then the goal blood pressure. Do you remember this? Like their map had to
Yeah.
be like 55, but then the goal map was 65, and it didn't
Yeah.
make any sense. And no one
Yeah.
could remember
It didn't.
why we did it that way.
Yeah. I don't remember why we did it that way, but I do know that hearing from the crews that are out there, the more on top of the crews anyway, we're like, when we can't, we're sort of, our hands are sort of tied until they get like, we're not going to not do stuff, but like, we're not really we can't really engage the protocol, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Per the protocol
Yeah.
until they get really bad.
And it's funny is we share when anybody asks, I send them our protocols, and so I shared them with some friends who are like, "Why do you guys not wait till this slow to start treating shock with pressors and stuff?" And I'm like, that's actually a very fine question. I don't know the answer to that, and that's that with our protocols being kind of committee and large group, I'm not involved in the creation of every protocol. I'm certainly every protocol is presented to all of us, but when you um, but when you are like researching a protocol, you kind of get more in depth with it, but versus just hearing about it,
Yeah.
But so we twisted that around. I think there are a couple other important things about shock that got us to this too. One, 30 milligrams, 30 milliliters per kilogram of fluids has sort of people have now backed off. Remember, it used to be that the CMS rules were like you got to give 30 mLs per kilogram of crystalloid
Yep.
as your kind of fluid challenge. And that was in the CMS kind of guidelines around shock. And so they've backed off from that. And what you read in the literature and then also see in this sort of expert podcasty world, and what I've seen clinically is that we are moving to sort of looking for an earlier response to fluids and moving to pressors much more quickly, because the idea is to fix hypotension as relatively quickly as you can. So we changed the protocol to have a goal of a map of 65, to remove any requirements that there had to be like 2 liters of fluid before moving to pressors, and allowing sort of more liberal use of pressors to get to that map of 65.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm just guessing us, encouraging push dose epi and then moving them over to norepi at some point, or
yeah, I mean, push dose epi has always been described and continues to be used as sort of a bridge to setting up your pump and your pressor. We have what we have discussed, and I didn't do that video, so I'm not quite sure they got into it very much, but certainly in our conversations, we have sometimes people doing multiple doses of push dose pressors, and we wanted to push people away from that into it's good to give, we're going to start norepi. Maybe you don't have a pump here, you have a pump in the ambulance. We'll get the pump set up in the ambulance. Let's give a push dose pressor to get to the ambulance. Yeah. But what happens when you just do a couple push dose pressor doses is that they show up at the hospital with a better pressure, and then everybody forgets about it, and then they dump their pressure 15 minutes later. Versus giving them one dose of push dose pressor and starting them on the norepi to maintain that pressure. So we've talked about that. Yeah.
And to answer Amber's, no, I and correct me if I'm wrong. I'm talking like I'm still working there, but push dose Levofed had never been a thing. We just used that.
No, the push dose pressors are going to be the 10 micrograms of epinephrine. Yeah. So the 1 to 100,000, if you will.
Yeah.
So diluting the 1 to 10,000 and giving a milliliter of that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not to change the subject too much, but
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, the Viper trial showed like, what was it? Push dose, help a brother out. Golly. We used to give him cardiac arrest. Come on. Hormone.
Vasopressin.
Thank you. Was pretty good, but That was before. I mean, it's expensive now. But anyway, yeah, no, I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, just push dose epi, get them on Levofed. It should be good.
Yep. So that's one change. I think the other change that's kind of interesting is we had in our protocols a procedure protocol called patient restraint.
Indeed.
And there were a couple of problems with it. The main one being that we actually had a contraindication for antipsychotics for geriatric patients in there, which meant your kind of only thing you could use for geriatrics was benzos, which turns out to be like bad and wrong.
Terrible.
And so we started out looking at the ACEP guidelines for geriatric management, agitation management as kind of the pushing off point. But the other thing that we looked at too was the ACEP guidelines. And this is a large document that I would recommend everybody download and read. But it was ACEP did this work on management of agitated patients. So the term agitated delirium is kind of out of vogue now because a lot of psychiatrists are running around and saying that it's not a real thing and there's no such diagnosis. And for us as EMS clinicians, we don't necessarily, you're quote not allowed to diagnose, which is kind of bullshit. But you certainly, what we do is we identify patient conditions and we manage those conditions. And so, given all the stuff that's happened around things like the Elijah McClain case and other high visibility cases in which agitated patients or supposedly agitated patients in that case were managed and with bad outcomes, ACEP put together a panel which included like Mike Levy from NAMSP and a number of other people that really looked at this management of the agitated patient. And so we use that also as kind of a tool to make sure that we were kind of following guidelines and being appropriate. But one of the things that we did is we took our patient restraint protocol and moved it to our patient treatment section and are now calling it agitated patient. And the whole point of it, though, is to focus on the fact that the agitated patient is not just a procedure that you're going to restrain them, but it's a whole kind of class of patient in which you have to manage the patient sort of top to bottom, that you have multiple modes, if you will, of management, including verbal de-escalation, physical restraint, chemical sedation, but that all of those things carry risk, and that dosing and so on should be appropriate. And we don't use ketamine in our system. We use droperidol. We use a combo of it depends on which county you are. We typically, for those patients who are severely agitated, we use a combination of an antipsychotic, either Geodon, droperidol, or Haldol. And in my counties, we use droperidol plus a benzodiazepine, but also making sure to emphasize post sedation monitoring, because a number of these cases there was very poor monitoring, and then emphasizing that there could be medical causes for all of these conditions. So we're so used to running into these patients who are running around, they're running around kind of half clothed. And yes, are most of them stimulants? They are. But a lot of them are, there are some of them that are other medical problems like post-ictal hypoglycemia, sepsis, hypoxia, head injury. So to not forget those. So we actually are in our multi-agency training are doing a tabletop scenario of a patient like that, where we emphasize those things in the management. I think we've talked previously about how we use the Brosette score as a documentation piece to sort of identify those patients who are high risk of violence, so that we are documenting if we move forward with restraints or chemical or pharmacologic sedation, that kind of the justification of how we got there. And then using the RAS score as kind of like your pain score, right? If they're what is their RAS before treatment, emphasizing that you then give treatment, and then emphasizing that you need to get a set of vitals and a RAS score post treatment. So some of that is just reinforcing what we've been talking about, but the whole idea that we're medicalizing this instead of making it be just some kind of procedure. We also now have added in antipsychotic dosing for geriatric patients, and then working with our peds specialists, Dr. Hansen, Dr. Sunhee Chung. There is a role for antipsychotics in pediatrics too, that we were not, pediatric agitation is a growing complaint also. It's still super small, but it happens. And so adding in medications to manage the agitated pediatric patient, of which diphenhydramine is a choice, which we wouldn't necessarily think of for adults, but certainly for kids. So that was one of our bigger changes, and one that I worked on pretty closely with our friend Tim Case, and Dr. Daya, and Dave Dennis, and I felt pretty proud of those changes.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, when we first rolled out sort of the bro set, the assessment, and then of course the RAS after that, like as well as all this other stuff, right? The medications or the verbal de-escalation or the physical restraints or whatever. I mean, the documentation of this stuff is huge, right? And again, not that we just talked about Elijah McClain or any of the other number of wild cases that have gone out there, and frankly sad and tragic and shitty. But I felt like having the bro training, what is this? Does this action, punching a wall that gets you a point, right? All these different ways to sort of quantify the reasons why you then, again, I'm saying we, like I'm still there, but we don't give ketamine in those circumstances, but we have other stuff to give. But it just, we assess them. We have an objective scale that we're applying this to, and therefore we applied this treatment, and this is what we discovered after. This is how they sort of reacted and responded to that. Like that's as important as controlling them and making sure we don't get the shit beat out of us and everything else. So that was one of my, I wasn't involved in that creation or implementation of that particular protocol, but I always thought that was huge. And I wish more people would do that. And I wish that was more widespread out there in some of these charting programs. It's weird.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a charting program that you worked with or had some influence on.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know either.
But anyway, so yeah, if you're listening or watching, check out the BroSet Violence Assessment Checklist. It's like a 5.5 thing.
Yep.
It basically gives you a score, and then we basically took that. If you get this kind of score, then think about this kind of treatment based on what you're seeing. And then really that Richmond sedation score. Yes, thank you. Is a great way to sort of as a pain scale as to how they responded. Where were they before? And then where were they after? And, that helps in so many different ways, right? Like if people were consistent in their documentation of this stuff, you can make protocol changes from data. Wow. Believe that. This is the crazy.
What a cool thing.
Yeah. It's a cool thing to know that, maybe 10 milligrams is too much, Ed, right? Maybe 5 would be good, but you don't know that unless you can sort of quantify that data. So anyway, yeah. I would love that.
Yeah. And we started calling it the Don't Tase Me Bro Set score, but that,
oh my God.
That started happening today.
Don't
Tase Me Bro Set score.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, so we've made some changes there.
Yeah.
So the Epic TBI folks presented some data that showed that the MAP and the systolic blood pressure, that's ideal for head injury is probably a little bit higher than we thought it was. So we actually
Makes sense to me.
we increased our vital sign goals for isolated traumatic brain injury patients. The conflict is always in the multi-system trauma patient, where if you think there's an intra-abdominal injury, you want to practice permissive hypotension. But if there's a brain injury, you don't want them to be hypotensive. And we sort of have
I actually, sorry, I didn't
Go
mean to
ahead.
interrupt you. I would say I have a talk on that I love giving because it's
Right.
I call it the slippery slope of permissive hypotension, because people get, they get tunnel visioned, and man, there's no faster way to kill your patient than to give them permissive hypotension when their head's bashed in.
Yep.
Dumb.
Yep. What else?
But people just think of, they were stabbed. Oh, but they were also beat in the head, right? So again, anyway, that's one of my favorite talks. I love that talk, by the way.
Yeah. And it's a hard topic, right? Because we tell people, I don't know that there's necessarily an exact right answer as to what to do.
Well, yeah. I think if you understand the physiology of cerebral perfusion pressure, for example, right? And basically in my talk that I give, it's like I'm giving myself a little prep talk here, but you really have to put those two patients side by side, right? And what I do in my talk is talk about, it's just a case guy that got stabbed, and then the same guy, he got stabbed. Oh, and he got beat in the head with a bat. Well, let's compare the two and find out what's the difference in physiology here, right? And if you understand why that pressure might need to be a little bit higher, it stands to reason that it probably needs to be a little bit higher, right?
Yeah.
But you're right. Polytrauma, multi-system trauma, slippery slope. Bet on the head.
Yeah. It's a slip. It certainly going backwards is not good.
Yeah. Well, we all learned that from the original Epic stuff, right?
Yeah,
H-bomb.
absolutely.
So Amber wants to know,
the newer data that they presented at NAMSP was that the blood pressure should be higher than we had a systolic of 90 as our goal, and I think we went up to 110 or 120. So any changes to immobilization protocol? We practice sort of spinal motion restriction. We still use a cervical collar. We don't require backboards anymore. We've stopped requiring backboards a number of years ago, although we still have problems because we still have times that our trauma surgeons freak out when somebody's not on a backboard. And we have to explain to them that there's no data to support a backboard.
Well, what I will tell you is that sometimes when we can't, necessarily rule stuff out, we need to put people on a backboard, right? So one of the things that I found was that people kind of forgot how to do it good. You know what I mean? It's just one of those skills that you don't do, but when you do need to do it, you still sort of need to do it right. I think, right? I feel like you should. And I had my own crews coming to me going, dude, we didn't do very good. We need to go over that again because we don't ever do it. And I said, well, let's do it, man. Pull out the damn backboard. Let's just get it.
It's like direct laryngoscopy, right? People don't remember how to do that anymore either.
Yeah. Yeah. And we changed the cervical collar stuff. Oops, a long time ago.
Maybe 10 years ago.
God, it's been a long. I remember talking about talks again. But I did one back in the day about who needs one and why do we even do that, and Canadian C-spine and the whole 9 yards. It was good. God, so that was 2015 probably. Oh God, it was before that. 2013 or 14. It's been a long time. You're right, 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, buddy. It's been an hour and 6 minutes. It's not a bad way to jump back in, and we could totally keep going.
Yeah.
I want people to know that we are going to do our annual protocol, in depth. This is just a little sneak, this little taste I don't
Yeah.
I don't have any protocols to share, so I'll be an observer. Even
Maybe
though
we
we are
should
in a
try to get. Maybe we'll get the chair of the protocol committee on.
Oh, that'd be good. Who was it this year?
It's Jesse,
Oh yeah.
Dr. Borer Clancy. And we
Yeah,
can,
let's do it.
we always talk about our process. So again, go over our
Yeah.
process
Yeah.
and go through kind of each one and what the data was. So I'll talk
Oh,
to
I'd love it. Let's
Jesse.
make it happen.
Yeah. And we can
By the way, we
probably,
still need to get Dr. Newgard. Oh,
yeah. Oh yeah. Talk about the new trauma stuff. Yeah. He's going on a 3-month sabbatical soon.
oh geez. You doctors. We need we
Well,
need to, you should throw him an email real quick.
yeah. Well, the university has a sabbatical program, so they get
Oh, that's
you
true.
get paid to go on your sabbatical. Some of us have
Yeah.
to just hoard money so that we can afford to take the month off.
Yeah. So Amber wants to know, what do you think about TXA for TBI?
So we've
Turns
had
out there was a
TXA.
study.
Turns out there was a study, and the study showed no difference in survival. But if you looked at some subgroup analysis, there was some pretty strong subgroup analysis that indicated that kind of timely application of TXA in the seriously injured people was beneficial. So one of the problems with that study that not my agencies, but Multnomah County, Dr. Jew's agencies were a site for here.
I was that.
Yeah. Oh, you were still at Multnomah when that started?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They looked at that, and one of the problems was that there were sort of less the not very badly injured people did not benefit. Kind of not surprising, right? So if you don't have anything wrong, nothing we do kind of makes you better.
Right.
But that sort of washed out. But when you did a subgroup analysis looking at the most injured, but not the most injured, there was a benefit there. So it was basically like between a GCS of 4 and 10, there was a pretty sizable improvement in survival. So in our group, if you're less than 12, but not 3, you can get TXA. So we've had that for a couple of years now.
Yeah. And I'd be really curious to see the data on that. I know it's available out there, but you know, what's funny is just like with everything, we implemented TXA in 19.
Yeah. And I was not a big TXA person before that.
Oh, yeah.
We had it come up numerous times, and we all said, we kept saying, nah.
Yeah.
But then with this data, and then, our trauma surgeons were PIs on that study and were very supportive and really wanted us to do it.
Well, and I'll just tell you, operationally, it would just get forgotten about. I know that sounds weird, but like when you're busy doing stuff and you're intubating somebody or doing whatever, like it would just, I think we missed a lot. And so you just got to keep up on that, with any new thing that's out there. You just gotta keep up on it,
Yeah. We also added TXA. We added indication for postpartum hemorrhage.
Yeah. So there you go, Ed. There's a perfect example. Do you think people are squirting it on gauze?
We do TXA for nosebleeds too. What was your question?
That was going to be it.
Yeah. TXA for nosebleeds. We added that last year.
Yeah. Did we? I don't remember that.
Yeah, we did. You didn't do that video.
No, I must not have, because I'm actually even looking at the protocols right now. I don't even see that as an indication. Moderate trauma and hemorrhagic shock.
Do you have the new one?
Yeah. Oh, I keep up, buddy. I keep up. Oh, I keep up.
Except with the rumor mill. Except when people change jobs. Then you're texting me like, when did this happen?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think let's work on getting Jesse on board. I won't see him tomorrow, but I'll see him day after tomorrow. Talk to him, and we can do a whole kind of like This is how we do our protocol annual. This is how we do our protocols, and this is what we've done episode.
Yep. Always a good episode. People love that. So
yeah.
Hey, buddy.
If anybody wants any questions about going to Belize, just let me know. I'm happy to.
Yeah, he's the guy. He can tell you all about it.
I now have a Belizean passport.
You got that stamp.
Definitely have the stamp. The stamp.
Well, thanks everyone for taking a little bit of time tonight and joining us. We're keeping it kind of short and sweet. After all, it is 10 o'clock at my house. I'm ready for bed. You know what I mean?
It's 8 o'clock at my house and I'm ready for bed. So there you go.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us here on the EMS show. We will look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Probably be this month. Maybe it'll be in January. Who knows? Anyway, on behalf of Dr. Ritu, Sonny, Mike Verkest, you've been watching the EMS show. Have a great night, and we will talk to you guys later. Take care.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for listening to the EMS show. Let's continue this conversation. What do you say? Check out the official Facebook page and Twitter feed. The EMS show is a Firedog production.